Hey everyone, it's Tom June here, back with another round of UK space industry updates, including news on Project Moonlight, the Northern Lights, and a small game you've probably never heard of that's apparently been released this week. So stick around and let's get going.
All right, lift off and the clock has started.
Okay, so we start this week with news on Project Moonlight, which is a European Space Agency program aiming to launch a constellation of satellites into orbit around the Moon from 2028. We've talked a lot on this channel about the UK Space Agency's continued funding for ESA projects, and this past week it was announced that a further funding boost of £50 million has been injected into Project Moonlight, which anticipates greater UK space company involvement as the programme develops. Now, Project Moonlight's main goal is to have a fleet of satellites orbiting our closest neighbour, allowing future astronauts, rovers, science experiments and other equipment on the lunar surface to communicate, share large amounts of data, including high-definition video, and to navigate safely. Research suggests that more than 250 missions to the Moon are planned to take place and launch within the next decade. So this funding boost positions the UK right at the heart of a programme that will directly tie in with NASA's Artemis project. I've mentioned previously here that companies such as SSTL, In-Space Missions, and others have already developed satellites and hardware which will be integrated onto lunar landers, including radar and LiDAR systems, ion mass spectrometers, radiation sensors, and of course the Lunar Pathfinder, which is due to be launched from Saxiford Spaceport by 2025. What's more exciting to think of is that with the return of humans to the Moon in the next few years, the UK has gone from somewhat of a wilderness to playing a big role in the whole thing. From initial ground monitoring by Goonhilly to in-flight mission tracking, on-orbit services and lunar surface operations, it really is a golden era for the UK space industry. Now, there are lots of investor conferences and educational talks happening across the world, and events are scheduled for here in the UK too in March 2023. So if you get the chance to go to any of these expos, I'd highly encourage you to head along and get involved. Not only that, but UK space careers will be at some of these events too, so if you fancy yourself a career in space, why not check it out? I will add a link to some of these events in the description below, and you can see more by following along on Twitter. Now, if you do enjoy my UK space news updates, do remember to hit that like button, consider subscribing, and if you haven't already done so, go ahead and tick that bell for notifications on future videos. It goes a long way to helping this channel, not just for me, but getting the word out to as wide an audience as possible, helping to spread the word about the UK space industry. Next, this past week was simply amazing for skywatchers and stargazers alike. If you're lucky enough to live from North England to Scotland and beyond, you'll have seen the Aurora Borealis, or Northern Lights, lighting up the sky for a few nights this past week. It certainly is a sight to behold, so check out some of the pictures on screen. What exactly is the Aurora Borealis? Well, no one is 100% sure, but the best estimate is that these wonderful light shows are caused by interactions between solar winds and the Earth's magnetosphere. Particles carried on these winds are usually deflected by the atmosphere, but sometimes a small portion manages to avoid this fate and instead hurtles down towards the Earth's poles. Passing through the various layers of atmosphere, much like a spacecraft re-entering after a long mission, they collide with the atoms and molecules within these atmospheric layers at high velocity, heating them up and causing them to excite. So the cool thing about this event is that the gases that make up the atmosphere, predominantly oxygen and nitrogen, react differently when thermally charged. The green we see in the aurora is characteristic of oxygen, while hints of purple, blue or pink are caused by nitrogen. Now, the Aurora Borealis can only be seen from the northern hemisphere and usually in places like Greenland, Iceland or somewhere close to the Arctic Circle. So this event is pretty rare to say the least, and that makes it even cooler. So if you do happen to be a stargazer or a skywatcher, the next time we get the hint that Aurora Borealis is on the way, head out somewhere into the open and go and see it for yourself. It truly is a sight worth seeing. Now, finally for this update, I know a lot of spaceflight fans out there also enjoy a video game from time to time, especially spaceflight simulators. Well, this past week saw the release of little known game Kerbal Space Program 2 into early access. Now, yeah, I'm just joking here. Kerbal Space Program 2 has been massively anticipated for years and years. This is the sequel to one of my favourite games of all time, Kerbal Space Program. Have you ever dreamed of operating your own space agency of little green people, flying rockets on interplanetary missions, building space planes, or giant orbiting space stations? Well, now you can in glorious high definition. Well, if you happen to own a super duper PC with a next gen CPU, that is. And I have to tell you, I am not in that category. Yet. Yeah, if you've been following along with the release of the game, you'll know that the specs are pretty demanding and the game is full of bugs. But it's worth pointing out that the game is not at full release stage just yet. It is still in early access. Now, what's more, by playing early access, you'll have the chance to help actively develop and shape the future of KSP2 by reporting on things that you come across whilst in the game to the developers. This was exactly the same as KSP1, but granted we are now in an era of 4K gaming, so of course the requirements for KSP2 are gonna be a little bit higher, quite a lot. Don't let that put you off though. If you do enjoy video games, spaceflight simulators in particular, or are just a fan of spaceflight in general, it is well worth checking out the sequel to one of the best games of all time. Now, I was a fair bit late to the party with KSP1, but I do plan on making some KSP2 content for this channel in the future. I've got some cool ideas already, and hopefully we will see them pretty soon. Now, speaking of cool ideas and future content, my output is going to reduce somewhat over the next little while, as I work on a couple of bigger video projects. But I'll still be bringing you all the very best UK space news updates as and when they come. I'm really excited with the content I've got planned for all of you out there, as well as a few other things in the works. What are they? Well, you'll just have to stick around and find out. I've been Tom June, and I'll see you next time.